Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, we're going to cover off how to brighten and dull raw umber. I'll tell you right now, there's not much you can do to dull raw umber because it's already dull. Really, the only thing you can do is just add black to it to make it more dull. So really this video is how to brighten raw umber. What I did is I pulled out some colors that would give you the biggest bang for your buck. So we have the Decor Traditions. I've got Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Pernon Orange, Handsy Yellow Medium, Yellow Oxide, Raw Sienna, Burnt Sienna, the Raw Umber, and then white for the underlying color. So why didn't I use Burnt Umber? Because they're already really dark. So they'll be hard to see, and Burnt Umber just has a little bit of red to it. Burnt Sienna is probably not too bad. We're going to slightly shift the Raw Umber a bit. Where you're going to see the real differences is in these ones right here. There's my brush. So, oops, I forgot to put white on the palette. So, the chart that I have, let me just put some white here. The chart that I have, I've got raw umber on both sides with white, see the true underlying color. You can also use a swatch card to compare. I've got my legends here, Burnt Sienna, Raw Sienna, Yellow Oxide, Handsy Yellow Medium, Pernon Orange, Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And we're going to start off with Burnt Sienna. So we're going to take the mixing color and add a little bit of raw umber only because it's so dark. So we're going to do opposite to what we normally do. So raw sienna with a little bit of raw umber. A little bit more than that. A little bit more than that. See, because burnt sienna is a lot more intense. Exactly how much more? Yeah, so saturation, where 0 is the dullest, the higher the number, brighter. Raw umber is 0.9, burnt sienna is 5. So that's why I'm having to add a lot more raw umber to try to get something out of it. A bit more than that. So we're talking roughly equal parts. There we go. Are. Why would you want to make something dull? Well, it depends on what you're painting. It depends. Let's say you're painting a tree and you just need to shift that color because, the way the sunlight hits it. Oh, this is a perfect shift. The way the sunlight's hitting it, or reflective light. For a highlight on an animal, if the highlight on a horse, let's say we'll use a pinto, the browns. If the light is warm, or if the horse is next to a red barn, the highlight color on the hair would be more on the red side, red orange side. Whereas if the horse was against a blue barn or against a shadow, the colors would be more on the dull sides, the blue sides. So that's a nice shift right there. So it brightens up raw umber just a little bit, but it's still a little dull. It's not like oof in your face. So let's try now raw umber with raw sienna. And I'm using equal parts. Raw sienna is semi-transparent. So it lightens as well. It lightens. And when we say a value shift, the value shift is with white or black. So although it did lighten the color, we're not calling it a value shift. We're calling it a hue change. The hue changed. The color changed. Nice creamy color that's slightly warmer. Leans more towards yellow. So the burnt sienna definitely leans more towards green. Raw sienna definitely leans more towards yellow. Raw umber on its own right now, at this moment here, this leans more towards blue-green. It's because of the light that I have right there. Alrighty. So yellow oxide, oops, picked up white. Yellow oxide is opaque where raw sienna was transparent. So let's see what we get here. Roughly, I'm going to use again, roughly equal parts. Ooh, the yellow oxide is really strong. Add more raw umber. So again, it brightens it up a little bit, but it's still dull. It's not intense in your face. When you're working with the earth tones, it's a great way to keep the colors dull, but you're getting a shift at the same time. So where we add the white, you can definitely see this definitely leans more towards yellow, but it does have a little bit of a green in it. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so now this is where we're going to see something different happening. So now because Raw Umber, to me, where I'm looking at it, it shifts more towards the green. The yellow we're using now leans towards orange. So although not totally on the complementary side, like they're not opposite each other, they're more like this on the color wheel. Let's see what happens. So Raw Umber and Handsy Yellow Medium. I'm going to start off with equal parts. Because it's so dark, I want to get a good color shift. So at first glance, with a single layer, I can definitely see where it leans towards yellow, but towards yellow-green. But is it going to be intense or is it going to be dull? Let's see what happens. That's a lot brighter. Let me get my other chart. So, where are we? So this is the one we did with Raw Umber and Handsy Yellow Light. So a lot brighter. You know what? Let me just put the color on the palette because I'm looking at that chart and it's really transparent. So let me just make up that new mix. So I'm going to do it down here. So I'm going to put the raw color here, then the white here. Okay, so we have Raw Umber with Handsy Yellow Light, roughly equal parts. I hope you can see. Yeah, you can see. Right there. Yeah, because it's so dark, we have to add the white to see the true underlying color. Try to make it the same value. It's not too bad. There's the difference. Value is close to being the same. Definitely more intense because it leans more towards green. That one leans more towards orange, which is why it's a little bit duller. So this is why, my friends, you might hate me for repeating this over and over and over again. Knowing where the colors sit on the color wheel is critical to mastering your color mixes. Critical. Because if you don't know where they sit in the color wheel, you could be mixing mud and never know how to get out of it. I remember those days. This is why I ended up buying 300 bottles of paint. It wasn't until I learned a lot about color theory, color mixing, that I was able to cut everything down to what I actually use in a palette to maybe 15 and under colors. Typically, I have maybe 7 or 8 on the palette. Just depends on what I'm painting. Paranone Orange. I'm going to start off with equal parts. So Paranone Orange is on a 15 on the intensity scale. That's why equal parts, it just takes over. It just takes over. I think with them all we use roughly equal parts, I believe. So, do you remember when we were working with burnt sienna? I was saying, oh, there's another way that we can make burnt sienna, but I can't show you because we haven't used the color yet. With Paranone Orange. Look at that. Nice. Okay, well, I want to do a check. burnt sienna, and white. A bit more burnt sienna. I want to try to match the value so it's easier for you to see. A little bit lighter. There, a little bit more. You see where I'm going here? That we could make burnt sienna with Perignon orange and raw umber. It's a little bit brighter. We have to wait for that to dry to really do a comparison, so we'll hold that aside. Hopefully I won't forget. All right, now permanent alizarin crimson. What the heck is this going to do? I'd like to say I want to hear your thoughts, but you can't talk to me through the microphone. So raw umber, I'm only going to use half of alizarin crimson. Oh, yeah, even that was too much. Now we haven't covered this yet. This makes a nice chromatic black on the violet side. You guys are going to love that lesson. It's one that I haven't taught a lot of, the chromatic black. But I did a private lesson with a student just on black, and which was really interesting because I've never had anybody want to learn just black. And that was it. It opened up a whole can of whoop butt on things that you could do with it. Look how bright that is. Okay, so I'm going to cover this here. Okay, so with the Perignon orange, it's a little bit duller, not quite as red, but you know what we could do with this? Add a little bit more orange to it. Easy peasy. Where's my other one? There's burnt sienna. So in this one here, the raw umber is slightly a little bit more. We should do a video on it, on now making up the colors with the colors we didn't cover in the actual individual lessons. I'll have to get a reminder on that. Sue, poor Sue. She's doing so well with doing all the charts, but I keep saying, remind me, remind me, remind me, remind me. All right, so what we have, looking on the brightness and dullness, so we have the raw umber. So we can look up here, but it's easier on the camera looking here. So compare to this. Really, if you think about it, because this is so gray, all the colors are brighter. Right? You know what? We need to be fair. We can't exclude it. Let's dull it down. We can't exclude it. We can't exclude it. Let's dull it down. We gotta be fair. The video is on how to brighten and dull. Well, we gotta do the whole thing, right? Can you imagine all the lessons that take black and we do it with chromatic black? You guys are gonna love that. Well, I hope you do, because it takes a lot of work to do those. It takes a lot of work. There we go. Okay, so it still doesn't dull. It shifts more towards blue. This is where you would investigate all the different blacks, because blacks all shift to different sides as well. So carbon black. Alrighty, so what we've got... So that's the raw umber. Really, the carbon black is the closest to being dull. Raw sienna dulls it a little bit as well, but everything else pretty well brightens everything up. Look how that color shifted. So in saying that, because raw umber is only a 0.9, where carbon black is a 0.1, everything else is higher in saturation. It's higher than intensity. So by nature, it's naturally going to, what? Brighten everything up. Where's burnt umber on that? 2.1, so it's slightly brighter than raw umber. Okay, so when you're picking your earth tone and you want a wide variety unless you really want to dull something down. So you may not want to go with Raw Umber because it's already dark, pretty dull and dark as it is. You could probably use it as is. I use it more for doing the underpaintings on portrait canvases. So you can go to something a little bit lighter. So go with maybe a burnt sienna, which is a core color, and then mix something else to really shift it to where you want to go. But Raw Umber really only goes one way. Well, not really one way. You got some duller things here, but you can't make anything duller than Raw Umber other than using black, which shifts it towards blue. It's still dull. It's a gray. So everything else is brighter. So what I want you to do is, if you don't have Raw Umber, stay tuned. Stay tuned to the next video, which is how to make your own Raw Umber. So you'll have to watch that first. And it's going to be a buy or DIY. And I tell you right now, Raw Umber is not a color that I like to make by hand, but it can be done. Create your color charts. I don't think I asked any pop quiz questions, did I? I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. If I did, post the question then the answer in the community descriptions oh my God. I'm so excited. This is the last color. Now we work towards, I think the next series is black or white, and I'm tired. So let me try again. So go to the description below. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link to go to the community. If you're not a member, you'll have to join. I do approvals once a day because it's a private community. And then once you're in there, post pictures, comments. Comments is on descriptions and information. Your aha moments on your charts is really helpful, because if you just post a picture of your chart, I don't know what you want me to say, like what you want me to look at. Because color charts to me are all pretty. So do you want me to look at, any aha moments that you had, a specific mix that you did? Like, I know for me, the mixes with Raw Umber, when it's with the yellows, I don't like them. But I really like the mixes here with the Paranoid Orange and the Alizarin Crimson, and the fact that I got a really close burnt sienna in there with that mix. So I should do a video on that too, how to make burnt sienna with this. Alrighty, that's it. I'm going to clean up, and the next video, I'm going to do a buy or DIY Raw Umber, which is not my favorite, but we'll get through it together. And until I see you then, stay inspired.